Okay, while we're waiting, as I said, I'm a senior lecturer at Dayton Business School. It's been an exciting journey. And you probably noticed the Regent logo and the tagline behind it, which talks about disrupting, rethinking, and innovating. And this is actually a core focal point of Regent Business School. This is something that we take very seriously because at Regent, our focus is not just on academic theory. Our focus is that we believe there's a huge gap between people that are coming in with qualifications and what industry needs. And taking into consideration the fourth and now going into the fifth industrial revolution, looking at disruptive technologies, things like business intelligence, artificial intelligence, 5G, Internet of Things, etc. And definitely the impact that it's having, not just in industry, but also as someone that's been working with Region for a long time, I can see the changes in my own organization. So we're very much cognizant, we're very much aware of the fact that we need to future-proof our students. And so the purpose of the theme of today's webinar is to study with purpose, but also to graduate with potential. And to unpack that meaning, it has a whole lot of connotations with it. But the primary focus is on you, on the student, and equipping you with the skills that the skill sets that are going to be required, not just in the next 3 years, but in the next 20, 30, 40 years, and so forth. So I'm going to start going into the presentation now. Okay, so looking at the current and future world of work, and as I alluded to, talking about business intelligence in the fourth industrial revolution, we can see that there's a huge impact in terms of the pace of technological change. I mean, if you actually think back in time, and if you actually look at, for example, the transition between 2G to 3G was quite long as compared to the development time between 3G and 4G, and then from 4G to 5G. Currently, Samsung is working on, they have a 6G system that's actually in the prototype phase at this point in time. And with this, with all of this technology, comes a direct impact on the world of work, whether you're an employer or an employee. And so the World Economic Forum indicates that 50% of employees will need reskilling by 2025, which is now. When we're looking at workplace disruption, the fact that 85 million jobs have already been displaced by automation, and 97 million new roles could emerge from human collaboration. So these opportunities, they're not just science fiction. It's about reshaping South African economies because, yes, we are part of the global South, we're part of BRICS, but we're also not in a silo. So what happens in China, what happens in the Middle East, what happens with Trump and the tariffs, etc., all of that affects us. And the fact that looking at the pace of technological change right now, we are in one of the most possible, the fastest periods of technological transformation in human history. And you'll notice that I spoke deliberately about the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution. So the fourth industrial revolution was characterized by the emergence of artificial intelligence. And in this begs the question, what is going to be the fifth industrial revolution? And so the funny thing about the fifth industrial revolution is that it talks about, when you look at the major tech companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and so forth, they sit on panels and people like Jeff Bezos, etc., and they asked about this. The fifth industrial revolution is very different from 4IR because it's talking specifically to the merge between human capabilities and technological capabilities, a merge between the two. So it's not just looking at computer systems or any sort of system as separate from the human. So in the past, innovations, things like the telephone or electricity, etc., it took decades to reach mass adoption. But let's just focus on one thing, ChatGPT. I'm sure you already heard of ChatGPT. You're possibly already using ChatGPT to do certain things in your work environment, your personal life. Um, and look at how fast this has been adopted. I mean, ChatGPT, first initially it was launched around 2021, but today it's so commonplace. Then if you look at the role of social media and look at the role of social media influencers, social media has completely transformed the relationship between organizations and their customers. No longer is it a one-way communication channel. No longer is it, I just put an advert in a newspaper, I put an ad, a TV ad, and that's a one-way communication channel. Now it's a two-way communication channel. Companies are exposed. Organizations are forced to be much more transparent. They're forced to monitor. They're forced to look at what's happening. What are the social media conversations? What are the algorithms? How do we embark on things like search engine optimization, etc.? And all of these things are things that have emerged in the last decade really rapidly. And it's only getting faster. And this is referred to as technological acceleration. And this technological acceleration means that the skill sets that we have today could possibly be obsolete in less than 5 years. So according to the World Economic Forum, the average half-life of a skill is now just 2.5 years in technology fields. And if you look at what's driving all of this, you've got artificial intelligence, you've got automation, we have machine learning, quantum computing, and cloud platforms. So organizations across different industries are integrating technology. And it's not just about cutting cost. A lot of these firms have to integrate in order to stay competitive. The bottom line is, if you want to compete, if you want to be a growing concern, if you want to be successful, you have to adopt technology. And so what does this mean for us as workers? So it's a challenge and it's an opportunity. In South Africa, especially in the South African context, we know that our economy, yes, there's high unemployment, but there's also a potential. There's also an opportunity to jumpstart, to leapfrog in from traditional development stages. And we can only do this if we adapt and adopt technology smartly. And this is why lifelong learning, digital literacy, and critical thinking are more important than ever. In fact, I did allude previously to my role in Regent. One of the things that I do at Regent is I work on the design of new programs and new qualifications. And I can tell you, in the last 3 years, and this is still going strong, it's still ongoing, we've been launching things like business intelligence, artificial intelligence in business, digital marketing, strategic management, etc. And the difference between these modules and normal academic modules, it's like chalk and cheese. And so these are not just academic modules. It's about preparing our students for survival and success, where change is the only constant. So what are the emerging roles and skill sets that are needed? So we all familiar with AI and machine learning. And so that comes with a demand for machine learning specialists, sustainability professionals, and data analysts. Why are data analysts so popular these days? If you go into LinkedIn, if you go into any sort of skills portal, you'll see that there's a massive demand for data analysts and business intelligence. And the fact is that firms really don't know. We're sitting on so many, firms are getting exposed and they are sitting on so much of data because of everything being so interconnected that nobody knows how to make sense of all of that data. In fact, this is a big role of AI, which is to transform that data into information and knowledge. So AI, data storing, sustainability, and health technology are just some of the growth areas that going forward will continue to grow. But these are not just jobs, they are industries on their own. And they have a common theme. And this common theme is professionals that are adaptable, that are skilled in digital tools, and able to lead responsibly. So LinkedIn, for example, the Emerging Jobs Report found that AI specialist had a 74% annual growth. Sustainability manager was 30%. So this is especially AI and machine learning as a job role has grown really fast. But to break it down, these roles evolved into things like AI product managers, machine learning engineers, and something that's been overlooked, something that up till today, there is no solid government policy on this. What about the role of ethics in AI? And so this is a very, up till now, especially in the US, there is no consensus on an ethical framework for the use of and development of AI. And so in South Africa, we can see that this growth is going to be impacting on the telecommunications scene, like MTN, financial services such as FNB, Capitec, etc. And so there's this heavy need to develop AI literacy, automation awareness, and strategic application. And AI itself is no longer just limited to the tech companies. It's changed, it has an impact on marketing, on HR, and on supply chain. And on top of all of this, we also have to bring in the question of sustainability. We know that climate change is a very real thing. And therefore, sustainability, especially the jobs, are projected to grow by over 30% by 2030. Looking at new fields, sorry, I jumped the slide. Looking at new fields such as you've got this carbon accountant, ESG analysts, things like environmental, social governance, sustainability managers. And the things that are driving this, especially in South Africa, is the Carbon Tax Act of 2019, the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producer Program, which has created over 50,000 plus jobs. And the fact that firms like Sasol, Eskom, and even local municipalities are looking for sustainability-linked roles. And then there's the data analysts and storytellers. And as I said, the data analyst field, it's one of the fastest growing roles. And a lot of it is because of the breakthroughs that are occurring in technology, especially software such as Excel, pivot tables, Tableau, Power BI, etc. And the use of, so, if you remember, I don't know if you remember COVID, during those lockdowns, one of the main things that was driving and informing lockdowns was data, using real-time analytics, right? So that's really important. So what does the future workforce? I mean, on the one hand, it's all doom and gloom when you hear about AI and automation, and there's all these reports that keep coming out about how we are going to be replaced with AI. But the fact is that there is a demand for digital skills, and there's certain things that for now AI cannot replicate. And so it's stuff like not just digital skills, but the most important, the most human of things, which is developing critical thinking, fostering creativity, emotional intelligence, and then underpinning that is to embrace new technologies. So the demand for digital skills is going to increase rapidly. And it's not just the ability to use software tools, but also to understand and work with AI and to operate in a digitally enabled workspace. However, critical thinking and creativity is not just about handling routine tasks, but also thinking outside the box. And it's also with critical thinking comes the ability to interpret complex problems, to challenge assumptions, to design creative solutions. You then have emotional intelligence. Again, this is something that's under-researched, but the ability to have self-awareness, empathy, communicate, and to collaborate. And this becomes more important when we're working with remote work. And when we're looking at hybrid and remote teams, emotional intelligence is literally going to be the glue that can hold the team together. In terms of the education versus job market reality, and this one interesting sort of statistic is that 65% of children that enter primary school today will work in jobs that do not exist yet, and this is an official UNESCO report. And then there's 40% of employers globally, they report skill shortages, in particular, the tech, the health, and the green industries. So there's a disconnect between what people study and what employees need. And so this is a employment and qualification mismatch. So a lot of graduates, particularly in South Africa and globally, they leave university, they have degrees that do not necessarily align with the labor market demands. And more specifically, a lot of these programs lack digital technical skills, or there's no exposure to real world tools or solving, as well as soft skills being missing, things like communication, critical thinking, collaboration. And this results in underemployment. So at Regent, we offer practical qualifications that are responsive to current trends with a focus in AI, sustainability, digital marketing, supply chain technology. We've been working on embedding case studies, simulations, workplace integrated learning, linking all of our material to industry, advisory boards, employee engagement, continuously updating our content. And it's not just about what you learn, but how you employ and then apply that what you have learned. In terms of the gig economy, so this is a word that you hear quite a bit. Gig economy and remote work, and what does it mean? So currently, 36% of the US workforce are now freelancers. And from economic perspective, that's contributing over $1.35 trillion to the economy. Hybrid and remote jobs have grown by 92% since 2020. But what about the South African landscape? So in South Africa, there's been significant growth in the gig economy and remote work. Mainly it's driven obviously by our high unemployment rates, but it's over 32%. Digital adoption and the need for flexible income sources. So in particular in South Africa, it's the ride hailing and delivery services. So things like Uber, Bolt, Mr. D, they dominate. But there's also freelancing platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, local platforms that connect South Africans with global gigs, as well as short-term skilled work platforms. So, and then there's also remote work trends. So gig work, it helps in terms of combating unemployment. It presents global opportunities. From a business perspective, it results in cost savings, access to skills. But in South Africa in particular, the challenges are that it doesn't offer job security and there's no benefits, and it's very dependent on internet access. But again, these barriers are something that will be and are being overcome. And in terms of green, I've already spoken about this, but 24 million new jobs could be created globally by looking at just sustainability, especially looking at roles in terms of renewable energy, carbon capture, and circular economic systems. Taking all of this into consideration, the next aspect is the generational shift, that Generation Z and millennials are more likely to switch job roles that are aligned with automation, AI, or sustainability. And so this rapid evolution of jobs, it's about technology, your climate action, and your demographic shifts. And this also means that with millennials and Generation Z in particular, their career pathways are not necessarily linear, meaning that the economy rewards people with multidisciplinary skills. And so at Regent, we encourage our students to have T-shaped skill profiles, meaning that you're specifically deep in one area of one particular skill set, but you also have a broad understanding of other skills. In terms of career exploration, yes, already spoken about AI and machine learning and the ethics that are around that. But traditional careers, things like medicine, law, accounting, they're oversubscribed. And the emerging and non-traditional fields offer hidden opportunities as well as a high growth rate. In particular, the fields of AI and machine learning, cybersecurity, blockchain, user interface, solar and electric vehicle management, as well as in terms of creativity and informal economy, looking at things like content creators or influencers and podcast producers. So there's a whole list of unconventional careers that are now emerging. So just to give you an example, of the green part of this, looking at things like carbon accountants as an example, PwC, driven by the carbon tax laws, um, is looking at the accounting market itself will reach 64.4 billion by 2030. And the global demand for sustainability in 2023 was over 55%. In terms of health technology, telemedicine coordinators, we've already seen this with the medical aids, especially Discovery and Bonitas, etc., and how they're switching towards these virtual doctors, virtual nurses, etc. So this is something that's already happening. And what's underpinning it is health data, especially health data analytics. Um, and so South Africa and the SEDC sector segment are looking at this. And from the government's perspective, they're investing in youth employment services, etc. So how does one build a T-shaped profile? So for example, hard skills could be things that focus on, for example, programming. You could have basic Python, you can get certifications from Google Analytics, HubSpot, etc. But then it's also about developing those soft skills, things like storytelling or critical thinking, and how to solve looking at case studies, etc. So at Regent, we focus on future-proofing the career. And if you look at some of the stats, uh, the official unemployment rate in South Africa is around 32.9%. And what's worrying is that the youth unemployment, 15 to 35 or 4 years, is at 46%. While unemployment between the 15 to 24-year-olds are 62.4%. So labor force participation has dropped. So these are challenges and underscores an urgency for purposeful higher education and career planning. And then on top of this, we've got the automation and AI disruption. And in particular, low-skilled roles are the ones that are most at risk through automation. So in order to future-proof this, it's about looking at AI integration, which demands an agile and digitally literate workers, looking at data and leadership in curriculum, again, commerce and management programs that specifically focus on core business, digital, and strategic skills. And education is and will always be the most powerful lever to escape poverty and unemployment. So higher education itself, it's no longer just about this linear pathway of BCom, postgraduate diplomas or honors and then MBA, but it's not just about that. It's about agility. It's about focusing on developing skills for an uncertain future. And so there's things like you could do, for example, networking and networking scripts. So it is an activity that I actually had here on this slide that I wanted you to do. So let me just come out of this. Okay, are there any questions so far? Okay, just by show of hands, how many of you have LinkedIn profiles? Okay, and how many of you regularly you update your profile? So it leads, for example, like what I've had on the slide, like aspiring, you use things like aspiring data analysts or sustainability advocates, etc. How many of you do that? And so this is the importance of soft skills that I was talking about. It's going to reshare the slide, yeah? Okay, so if you look at, for example, an optimization checklist on LinkedIn, you could have so general stuff would be a headline and about section that must not be more than 3 paragraphs, and an example post showing what you actually do. Then in terms of networking, it's about things like the soft skills in terms of I admire your work in the field, would like a 10-minute chat as an example. So something that's warm or friendly. So I'm not going to run the activity that I had there, but just to give you an example of something as simple as looking at your LinkedIn profile and how your LinkedIn profile is structured. There's also hacks for in terms of your resume. So things like mirroring job descriptions. And then there's also entrepreneurship by looking at things like social media management, drop shipping, looking at Google Forms, survey forms, etc. So all of this ties in into this slide. So we have things where a lot of our past students became, actually one of our students became a social media influencer and she was really good at it. Um, but it's also about portfolio building. So when you study in higher education, whether it's Regent or anybody else, it's about not just looking at the degree as a qualification, but rather a portfolio of skills that you are going to be using. And so you don't wait for opportunities to happen, you got to create them. And so whether you study or do not study, it's about having an action plan in terms of it could be a 30-day or a 6-month plan, but looking at things like constantly updating your LinkedIn profile, going onto short learning programs, looking at internships, building portfolios, etc. Looking also at getting experience beyond, especially if you're in employment, getting experience beyond your current scope or your current field. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my side of the presentation, and we have a Q&A now. So are there any questions, anything that intrigued you during the presentation? Is there anything that you'd like to know? Okay, Happiness, you got your hand up. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I would like to know some few things about the college.
Okay.
My first my first question is about attendance in information and session of time.
Yeah. Do you want to know how you would attend lectures?
Yes, if I want to study online and not
Yeah.
personally.
Okay. So Regent we're a distance higher education institution. So like I said, we shifted massively into the digital ecosystem. So all our lectures, just like how we're using Zoom right now, we use Microsoft Teams for our lectures. And so all our lectures take place online. But having said that, we do have physical centers around Durban, Joburg, Cape Town, etc. So if you're in those areas, you could always walk in physically and use the physical resources that the region also gives you access to. But in terms of the
Okay.
content, the material, the lecture delivery, even the exam itself, all of this takes place online.
So are there any scholarships or financial aid options?
Okay, so there are financial options that so I'm not in the marketing department, but I can definitely if you direct message me and I take down your email, I can get one of the marketers to assist you with that specific query, but I do know that there's different modes of payment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, Cynthia, you can unmute.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Well, thanks for asking. Just wanted to ask, at the moment I have a diploma in human resource management, but I would like to further my studies. But however, I've done my diploma under the TVT college, so I'm not sure if one would want to further. Do I have to do an advanced certificate or an advanced diploma, or does it have any weight, meaning that the diploma that I achieved through the TVT college?
Okay, so I'd actually have to, which TVET college did you do your stuff through?
I done it through Ekurhuleni East, yeah.
Okay, and do you know what NQF level that diploma was at?
It's a NQF level 6.
Level 6, right? Okay, so that's fine. So you can actually go into, and so there's different options for you, right? You could go into our advanced diploma in management, and then from there you could go into the postgraduate diploma in management, which will then eventually lead you to a master's level qualification if you want, which would at Regent, the main one would be an MBA. In terms of whether you should actually do that, I would say yes, in the sense of, and it's not just about region, but the thing is, it's you're coming up with a TVET qualification, right? And the focus usually with TVET qualifications are more practical and operational. And so if you do, for example, an advanced diploma, it's going to give you those. Remember, I was talking about critical thinking. So what's going to be
Yes.
missing from your portfolio is strategy, in particular, things like strategic thinking. And it's also about broadening your skill set. So right now, I'm sure your diploma is very much focused on HR related issues. But today, HR doesn't just deal specifically with only HR related issues. So you need a wider skill set. So have a look at the advanced diploma in management,
Okay. All right.
and
I'll do
just
so.
see if that's a qualification for you. But the good thing about the advanced diploma is that like once you finish it, then again gives you access to a postgraduate qualification. So you're really going to be upskilling yourself there. Okay,
Oh,
so I hope
okay.
that
All
answers
right.
your question there, Cynthia.
Yes, 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 it did. Because at the moment, I am employed as an HR officer, but
Mm-hmm.
however, at the company that I'm working, we have a labor broker that's actually handling all our IR. But for
Yeah,
me, it's a disadvantage because at the end of the day, I don't get the challenge. I don't get the experience
that
because they
strategic
handling
level.
all our IR. Yeah.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. Okay, so yeah, look at that advanced diploma, and then on the other thing is like, what happens if you want to branch out from HR, right? And in today's
Yeah.
like economy, you need to have a broad skill set also. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely just
understood.
have a look at the Regent website, or one of the marketers could talk to you and see if you'd be interested in that advanced diploma in management.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, is there anything else that I can assist with? Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'm going to let's double check the chat. Okay, yeah. So if there's nothing else, then I wish you a good evening. Thank you for taking the time to attend. And I hope that, yeah, that you decide to continue your academic journey with Reach Out. So from my side, take care and, oh, okay, there's Johannes. Okay, I'm allowing you to talk. You can unmute yourself, Johan. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So yeah, I'm going to end the session. So take care and have a good evening. Okay, we can hear you now, Johannes.
So I'm audible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. Don't want to waste the guys' time. In terms of distance studying, I'm basically calling from the side of Namibia, your neighboring country.
Yeah.
When it comes to exams, will the exams be digital, meaning you will have to physically, speaking now in terms of the guys that doesn't have access to digital platforms, electronics, they will physically have to like write the exams online from a distance point of view.
So the way our system works is that it's based off an internet sort of platform. So as long as you have a laptop and internet access, you'll be able to write that exam anywhere. We actually do have a lot of students in Namibia.
And then
So
obviously there will be time constraint to it when it comes to the
yes, there is
exams.
definitely, yeah. There's a proctoring system that we use. It's called Small, and that kind of allows us to keep control over the exam. And whether the students are in Namibia, Swaziland, Durban, Joburg, everybody starts at the same time. Everyone has the exact same allocated time frame to conduct the exam.
Okay, noted. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other queries? Okay, then I think we can end the session. So yeah, take care and hope to welcome you to the Region family.